Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to configure the MQTT DSLink in DSA and interact with it in DGLux. You can't talk about IoT without seeing MQTT mentioned. MQTT is really the de facto IoT protocol and has implementations pretty much for any platform and any device. You can learn more about it on mqtt.org. The Mosquitto MQTT broker is if you will, the de facto standard MQTT broker for this protocol, and we're going to be using that for demonstration in today's tutorial. So first, let's go ahead and log into DGLux, and provided our DGLux server is running, as we have installed it in the previous steps, we're just going to go in and navigate now into sys. We're going to open up links, and we're going to right-click links, and we're going to install a link. So we're going to install the MQTT link, so just give it a name here, and select that from the list. I'm going to press invoke, and that will install the link for us right over here. So now the last thing to do is to start it. Once it's started, you should see it appear for you in your downstream. So we have it here, and it has actions to add an MQTT server. So as we can see from this page, we can add an MQTT server, and we'll just give it a name. So we'll say this is going to be a Mosquitto server. And this MQTT server, as we can see here, this is its URL, test.mosquitto.org. Now the URL format for MQTT servers has a couple of different protocols and URL schemes that can be used. So we can use TCP, SSL, or local as part of the MQTT protocol specification. Most servers and demos, if you're not using SSL, are going to use TCP:// and then we can just paste in our URL. If we need to supply a different port, we can do colon and whatever port it is that we want to use, and we'll show that in further examples. MQTT has a couple of different quality of service levels. 0 is the lowest on your CPU, and 2 has things like retain messages, etc. You can definitely learn more about it from the MQTT protocol, or you can just mouse over the label and read the tooltip. The client ID needs to be just any kind of unique client ID that you'd like to choose. The only thing this is used for is if you get disconnected from the MQTT server and then you reconnect again with the same client ID, that means all of your subscriptions will get automatically resubscribed by the MQTT broker. So we'll just give it a random client ID, random 1234. Now we can press invoke, and we're going to see our Mosquitto server get added here. Now, the way MQTT works is you subscribe to topics, and then you get notified when those topics change. So the first thing we can do, you can see that there's a couple of interesting links here. We can see there's a D3 powered sys tree for test.mosquitto.org. So this is really cool because it's showing us this chart of all of the data metrics under the sys node of this MQTT broker. And what we can do, we're going to subscribe to the same thing. We're going to say subscribe. Let's give this a name, because when we add subscriptions, they're named, and that way we can remove them later if we don't want them anymore. So we'll call the subscription sys, and we'll subscribe to $sys/hash. So in MQTT, there's a couple of wildcard characters. Hash is basically anything. You can also use plus if you want to do things like, for example, /sys/anything in this level /something else / let's say hash, right? So you can use plus as a placeholder for a specific folder, if you will. But we'll just subscribe to $sys/hash. And what we can see right away is we can expand data, because there's new data going in there. We can see sys, we can see the broker under sys. And what DSA is doing, what specifically the MQTT DSLink is, even though in MQTT itself, it's just messages. Every message you're being notified with just has a path, because that's its topic. But it's much easier to work with this from a tree point of view, and that is why the DSLink is really breaking down all those messages into a nice tree structure. So as new messages come in, this tree is constantly changing for us. But you can see we have sys, broker, we have all the same information. We can see the current received bytes, for example, from the broker, and this will be exactly the same as on this page and the numbers that are changing. Okay, so let's look at another example now. On the mosquitto.org page, you can see there's another example. We have this demo temperature gauge. And it says it's on the same server, and this gauge here, I believe it's also a D3 gauge or something like that, it's showing us the value of the temp/random topic. Well, for us to interact with it, we can go to subscriptions and subscribe to, give the subscription name as a gauge, and let's subscribe to temp/random, just like it says right over here. And once we do that, you can see we get another node in our data tree, and here's the random value, and you can see this perfectly matches. Let's say now we want to publish a topic. Now you can publish arbitrary topics just by right-clicking your top-level server node and giving it the topic name, which we can do. Let's copy this right here. So we will publish a topic of, let's say, 25. And you can see right away, because this third-party component is subscribed to the same broker, to the same topic, when we publish a topic to it, it got synchronized up right away. Now there's even an easier way of setting, if you will, data from the point of view of DSA. Instead of just arbitrarily putting the topic path in there, we have an action on the actual random topic right over here. When you right click, we can set it to a value. So you can see now we're setting it to 11. Now let's create a little data flow to do a few fun things. So we'll create a new data flow. Let's call this MQTT. And we'll play around with this gauge right from the remote data flow in DSA. So the first thing that I would like to do is, because I can set this random topic, I'm going to right click and drag the set action right into my data flow. And I'm going to say auto run true. That means it's going to run whenever the value input changes, which is right here. So as I type things in, you can see that this gauge is now changing for us. Now to make this more interesting, let's add a stopwatch, my favorite component for demos. And then you'll notice I also like sine waves. And we're going to link the stopwatch to the sine wave. And once the stopwatch starts up, you can see it's ticking twice per second. The sine wave is going to go from -1 to 1. So let's use a scale block to scale this value to the range of the gauge itself. So we can see that the gauge is going from -20 to 50. So we're going to say that's going to be our output minimum is -20, and our output maximum is 50. Let's link the sine wave into the input of the scale block and say our sine value is going from -1 to 1. So this will automatically scale it for us, and we can link it into the value field. So you can see now we're publishing. This gauge is reacting, so it's going to be basically going up and down. And if more users were looking at this at exactly the same time, they would of course see the exact same thing. And we can also see this, our random topic subscription is also changing. All right, so if we want to reproduce the same functionality as we see here, let's use one of the DGLux gauges, and let's just bind that here. Let's make it look the same. Say minimum is going to be -20, maximum is going to be 50. Another really popular MQTT broker is HiveMQ. HiveMQ has a nice demo application for us, and we can use the MQTT web browser client to also monitor messages on the MQTT broker. So let's go ahead and create another server connection to this host, which is mqttdashboard.com. Let's go ahead and add it here. Let's call this Hive. Give it a URL of tcp:// give it the broker and a client ID. Once we've added this, you can also add subscriptions to everything on the broker. And the way you do that, let's give it a name of everything and put a hashtag in for the topics. And what you start to see is actually every single message that the broker has retained, as well as new messages that are coming in, you're going to see them right over here. Now we can do the same thing with our Mosquitto server as well. Let's add an, I actually just give a hash as a name and say, let's add hash. So this will get us all the data on that broker. And you can see even the root node has metrics as well. And we can have some fun, actually override some of those values as well, just like we showed you earlier. So now our brokers, as you can see, these trees are going really, really long and really, really big. Now there is also another kind of everything query you can do for the topics, because for some reason, and I haven't figured out exactly why in MQTT, but everything is not everything. You can now also do /hash, and that will pick up even more data for us. And this is just the way MQTT subscriptions work. So let's connect to this in the web UI as well. And you can see now we're connected, and it says add a new topic subscription. Let's leave the defaults. Let's do test topic hash. Let's actually just copy and paste this, subscribe it, and you can see the current values. And let's go to our subscriptions. Let's actually unsubscribe and remove them all. So we have no more messages here under subscriptions. And let's just add literally this one. The same one that HiveMQ itself is subscribed to. So we can see that test topic right over here. You could see its current value, and you can see some of the other subtopics that somebody was trying to subscribe to. You can see all of that here. And let's go ahead and publish something. What we should see is as soon as we put a command here, we'll see the exact same message here on the right side. So you can see that is our client publishing this topic. Now let's show the converse of sending messages from HiveMQ interface into DSA. Now we'll use the built-in publish feature of this interface, and it's publishing to test topic /1. So we go to test topic, and we have /1 right over here, and we can say, for example, hello there. And when we publish, you can see test topic /1 changes to hello there. Now let's convert this to something more interesting. Let's start putting some numbers in here. And let's say we'll publish 55. You can see that's the value. Well, now we can take, let's say, a gauge from DGLux and bind this topic value right to the gauge. So now we're able to publish messages from a HiveMQ interface through the HiveMQ broker to the DSA MQTT DSLink through DGLux server and all the way into the DGLux interface, and all of this happens really, really fast. So you can see us changing the values. Let's take this a step further. As you recall, a temperature gauge here on the Mosquitto broker, and we have this HiveMQ interface. Now there are features in MQTT brokers that allow you to connect one broker to another broker, etc. Now, but we can use the power of DGLux to do this as well, and even do some conversions in between. So let's actually control this gauge as subscribed to the Mosquitto broker, and you can see its ranges from -20 to 50. Let's control it from the HiveMQ broker, but we're going to give values from 0 to 100, and we'll map them into this scale. So for that, let's go back to our MQTT data flow. Now let's go ahead and go to our Hive broker and subscribe to this test topic /1. So we have the value here. We can rename this. Let's call this Hive value as an example. And let's expand our Mosquitto broker. Now let's drag in the set action from our random value. Make this auto run. And of course, by default, we can just link the value from HiveMQ into the value of this gauge. So what we can see now is we're enabling cross-broker communication. And of course, we can take it through a scale block. So if our value is going to be, let's say, from 0 to 100, we'll convert into the valid range of -20 to 50 right over here, and bind the result. So if the value is 100, you can see it's 50, and if it's 0, it's -20. Thank you very much.